The scissors snipped through Emily's ponytail like it was nothing. 1 second, it was there. The same chestnut brown hair her late mother used to braid before every game. The next, it was gone, lying on the dirty locker room floor while Tiffany and her friends laughed. Phones raised to capture every second of her humiliation. Emily's hands shook as she touched the jagged ends left behind. Then something inside her snapped. Not into pieces. Into fire. Her foot lashed out in a perfect roundhouse kick, sending the clippers flying across the room. The video would go viral by lunch. The school would take sides by dinner. And by the end of the week, something will happen next in this story that you would have never imagined. From which country are you enjoying this story? Make sure to tell us in the comments, and subscribe now, because this revenge tale is only getting started. The locker room was quiet except for the distant echoes of students leaving practice, the squeak of sneakers on tile fading down the hallway. Emily stood in front of the mirror, running her fingers through her chestnut brown ponytail, the same one she had grown out for years. It was more than just hair to her. It was the last thing her mother had braided for her before she passed away. Every time she tied it up before a game, she could almost feel her mom's hands guiding her, whispering, "Asterisk, you've got this, sweetheart." Asterisk. She was lost in the memory when the door burst open. 3 girls walked in, their laughter sharp and mocking before they even spoke. Tiffany led the way, her designer sneakers scuffing against the floor as she twirled a pair of electric clippers in her hand. Jess and Mara trailed behind, their phones already out, recording. Emily's stomach dropped. She dealt with their petty bullying before, stolen uniforms, nasty notes in her locker, rumors spread behind her back, but this felt different. The way Tiffany's eyes locked onto her ponytail made her skin prickle. "Ah, look guys," Tiffany said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Little Emily's still pretending she's the star of the squad. Emily turned to grab her bag, forcing herself to stay calm. "Just leave me alone, Tiff." But Tiffany stepped closer, the clippers buzzing to life in her hand. "You know, I've always wondered, what's so special about this stupid ponytail anyway? You act like it's some kind of trophy." Emily's breath hitched. She backed up, but the lockers pressed against her spine. Jess and Mara circled her, their phones raised, eager to capture whatever happened next. And then, the sound. The harsh, metallic snip of the blades. Emily didn't even realize what had happened at first. Not until she felt the sudden lightness, the uneven strands brushing against her neck. Her hands flew up, trembling as they touched what was left. Her ponytail, her mother's ponytail, lay on the floor at Tiffany's feet. The laughter was immediate, cruel, unstoppable. "Look at her!" Jess cackled. "Oops," Tiffany smirked, kicking the severed hair aside. "Guess you're not so perfect now, huh?" Emily's vision blurred. Her chest burned. For months, she had swallowed every insult, every humiliation, because that's what everyone expected her to do. Asterisk, just ignore them. Don't let them see it hurts. Asterisk. But this wasn't just bullying. This was war. And Emily was done retreating. Her fingers curled into fists. Her muscles tensed. Years of taekwondo training, every lesson her dad had drilled into her, flashed through her mind. Tiffany lunged again, the clippers buzzing toward her. This time, Emily didn't freeze. She moved. A spin. A pivot. A sharp, precise roundhouse kick that sent the clippers clattering across the floor. Silence. Tiffany staggered back, shock flashing across her face. The phones were still recording, but no one was laughing anymore. Emily stood there, breathing hard, her uneven hair sticking to her damp skin. She didn't care about the cameras. She didn't care about the whispers that would follow. All she cared about was the fire in her veins, the one that told her this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in the principal's office, casting a sterile glow over the tense scene. Emily sat stiffly in the hard plastic chair, her fingers absently tracing the jagged ends of her hair. Across from her, Principal Higgins sighed and removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose like he was trying to squeeze out a headache. "I've already spoken with Tiffany and the others," he said, his voice weary. "They claim it was just a prank that got out of hand." Emily's nails dug into her palms. A prank. That's what they were calling it. "Did you see the video?" she asked quietly. Principal Higgins hesitated. "Emily, I understand you're upset. They cut off my hair, she interrupted, her voice trembling. They filmed it. They laughed. Across the room, her father sat with his arms crossed, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle twitching. He hadn't said much since they'd been called to the office. Just a low, dangerous asterisk, start talking, asterisk to the principal when they arrived. Now, he leaned forward. So what's the consequence? Principal Higgins shifted uncomfortably. Given the circumstances, we're suspending Tiffany and the other 2 girls for 3 days. We're also requiring them to attend. 3 days. Emily's father barked out a harsh laugh. That's it. It's a first offense for Tiffany. It's not a first offense, Emily said. Her voice was steadier now. She's been doing stuff like this all year. The teachers just never see it. The room fell silent. Principal Higgins opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked down at the disciplinary report in front of him, then back at Emily. I'll look into that, he said finally. But for now, Emily, I have to ask. That kick you threw, where did you learn that? Her father stiffened. Emily lifted her chin. Taekwondo. Since I was 6. Principal Higgins exhaled. Right. Well, I can't ignore that you retaliated with physical force. She was defending herself, her father cut in, his voice like steel. But given the provocation, the principal continued carefully, I'm willing to let it go with a warning. This time. Emily nodded numbly. The meeting ended with hollow promises of, we'll take this seriously, and asterisk, bullying has no place at this school. Asterisk as they walked out of the office, Emily's father stopped her in the empty hallway. You okay, kid? Emily swallowed hard. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to be tough, like he'd taught her. But her throat felt tight, and when she opened her mouth, all that came out was a broken whisper. I just want my hair back. Her father pulled her into a hug, his grip almost too tight, like he could shield her from everything if he just held on hard enough. When they pulled apart, his eyes were dark with something furious, and something else. Something like resolve. Listen to me, he said, gripping her shoulders. What they did to you, that's not how this ends. You understand? You're gonna walk back into that school with your head high, and you're gonna show them that they didn't break you. They just woke you up. Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Then she nodded, because he was right. This wasn't over. The next morning, Emily stood in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at the uneven mess of hair left on her head. Without thinking, she reached for the scissors in the drawer. One snip, then another. By the time she was done, the last remnants of her ponytail were gone. She ran her hand over the short, spiky strands. So different from what she'd had before. So different from the girl who'd taken the bullying in silence. Her phone buzzed. A text from the cheer captain. Asterisk, squad meeting before school. You coming? Asterisk. Emily took a deep breath. Then she typed back. Asterisk, be there in 5. Asterisk. The early morning air was crisp as Emily stepped out of her car, the gravel of the school parking lot crunching under her sneakers. She could feel the weight of stairs before she even reached the sidewalk. Whispers followed her like shadows as she walked toward the gymnasium where the cheer squad was meeting before school. She kept her chin up, her newly shorn hair exposed to the world. It was strange, not feeling the familiar weight of her ponytail bouncing against her back. Strange, but also freeing. Like she had shed more than just hair. She had shed the version of herself that took the hits and stayed quiet. The gym doors swung open before she could reach them. Sarah, the cheer captain, stood there with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Behind her, the rest of the squad had gone silent, their eyes darting between Emily and Sarah like they were waiting for something to explode. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Sarah stepped aside. Get in here, she said. We have a routine to go over. The tension in Emily's shoulders eased slightly as she walked into the gym. But the whispers didn't stop. Asterisk, did you see the video? Asterisk. Asterisk, I heard Tiffany's dad is suing the school. Asterisk. Do you think she'll even be allowed to cheer after? Enough. Sarah's voice cut through the chatter like a whip. We have a competition in 2 weeks. If anyone has a problem focusing, you can leave now. No one moved. Emily took her usual spot in the formation, ignoring the way a few of the girls edged away from her. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored wall, her short hair, the defiant set of her jaw. She barely recognized herself. And maybe that was the point. The first strike back. Lunchtime was worse. Emily sat alone at her usual table, picking at her food while the cafeteria buzzed around her. The video of Tiffany cutting her hair, and Emily's roundhouse kick, had spread like wildfire. Some people looked at her with pity, others with outright fear. Then there were the ones who looked at her like she was a bomb about to go off. She was halfway through her sandwich when a tray slammed down across from her. "You look like a boy now." Emily didn't even flinch. She just lifted her eyes to meet Tiffany's smirking face. The other girls' entourage hovered behind her, their phones already out, ready to capture whatever happened next. Tiffany leaned in, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Ah, don't be mad. I did you a favor. Now you don't have to waste time brushing it." Emily set her sandwich down slowly. Then she smiled. "You're right," she said, her voice calm. "I don't." Tiffany blinked, thrown off by the response. Emily stood, picking up her tray. "But you know what I do have time for now?" She leaned in, just close enough for only Tiffany to hear. "Payback." Then she walked away, leaving Tiffany staring after her, the smirk gone. The secret no one knew. Emily wasn't stupid. She knew Tiffany wouldn't let this go. What she didn't know was why Tiffany had targeted her in the first place. That night, she sat on her bedroom floor, scrolling through old social media posts, yearbook photos, anything that might give her a clue. And then she found it. A photo from freshman year. A younger Tiffany, standing next to a boy Emily vaguely recognized. They were holding hands, smiling. Emily frowned. She clicked on the boy's profile. Jason Carter. Her stomach dropped. Jason had been in her chemistry class last year. Quiet. Nice. They'd partnered up for a project once. And then, halfway through the semester, he'd transferred schools. Emily dug deeper. Buried in the comments of an old post, she found it. Asterisk, wish you were still here, Jay. Miss you every day. Asterisk. Tiffany. And Jason's reply. Asterisk. You know why I left. Asterisk. Emily's breath caught. She kept scrolling. Another post. Another comment. Asterisk. Was it because of her? Asterisk. Jason's response this time was simple. Asterisk. Leave it alone, Tiff. Asterisk. Emily's hands shook as she put the pieces together. Tiffany hadn't just randomly decided to ruin her life. This was revenge. But for what? The library was quiet except for the occasional rustle of pages and the hum of the ancient air conditioner struggling against the late summer heat. Emily sat at a corner table, her laptop open in front of her, the glow of the screen casting sharp shadows across her face. She had been digging for hours, piecing together fragments of information, trying to understand what had really happened between Jason and Tiffany, and how she had somehow become the target of Tiffany's rage. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she pulled up an old-school newsletter from the previous year. There, buried in the announcement section, was a small blurb. Asterisk, congratulations to Jason Carter for winning the regional science fair with his project on renewable energy solutions. Jason will be representing Ridgeview High at the state finals next month. Asterisk. Emily frowned. She remembered that project. Jason had worked on it for months, often staying late after school to use the lab. She had even helped him with some of the research when he'd asked. So why would Tiffany blame her for Jason leaving? She dug deeper, scrolling through old messages, yearbook photos, anything that might give her a clue. And then she found it, a comment on one of Tiffany's posts from last year, hidden beneath layers of likes and inside jokes. "You're the reason he's gone," someone had written. Tiffany's reply was sharp. Asterisk, no. Is. Asterisk. Emily's pulse quickened. She clicked on the profile of the person who had left the comment. A girl named Lauren, who had graduated last year. A quick search revealed that Lauren had been one of Tiffany's closest friends. This was it. This was the connection. Emily leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She needed to talk to Jason. But how? He had transferred to another school halfway across the state. Then she remembered, The science fair. If Jason had competed at the state level, there might be records, photos, maybe even a way to contact him. She pulled up the website for the state science fair and searched his name. And there it was. A photo of Jason standing next to his project, a proud smile on his face. And beside him, in the background, barely visible, Emily herself, caught in the frame as she walked past. But that wasn't what made her breath catch. It was the date. The science fair had been 2 days before Jason transferred. The confrontation. Emily didn't wait for the next day. She grabbed her phone and dialed the number she had found for Jason's new school. After a few transfers, she was connected to his voicemail. "Jason," she said, her voice low but steady. "It's Emily. From Ridgeview. I need to talk to you. It's about Tiffany." She hung up, not sure if he would even respond. But her phone rang less than an hour later. "Emily." Jason's voice was cautious, almost wary. "Yeah, hi." She swallowed hard. "I know this is weird, but I need to know why you left Ridgeview." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then a sigh. "Tiffany didn't tell you?" "No. She just started making my life hell this year. And now I think it's because of you." Another pause. When Jason spoke again, his voice was quieter. "Tiffany and I dated for almost a year. But last spring, she started getting possessive. Crazy even. She accused me of cheating on her with half the school. Then she found out I was working on that science fair project with you. Just as partners, just for class, and she lost it." Emily's stomach twisted. "What happened?" "I told her it wasn't like that. But she didn't believe me. She started showing up at my house, calling me non-stop. Then she threatened to ruin the science fair for me if I didn't break up with her." Jason's voice hardened. "So I did. And the next day, my project was destroyed. All my work gone." Emily's breath caught. "Tiffany did that?" "Yeah. And when I reported her, the school did nothing. Her dad's on the school board. So I left. I couldn't stay there after that." The pieces clicked into place. Tiffany hadn't just blamed Emily for Jason leaving. She blamed her for everything. The breakup, the destroyed project, the transfer. And now, Emily was paying the price. The plan. Emily sat on her bed, staring at the wall, Jason's words echoing in her mind. Tiffany had gotten away with it before. She would get away with it again, unless Emily did something. But what? She couldn't fight Tiffany the way she had in the locker room. Not without getting suspended, or worse. No. She needed to be smarter than that. She needed to hit Tiffany where it hurt. Her reputation. Emily grabbed her laptop and opened her social media accounts. She had evidence now. The comments, the dates, Jason's story. But she needed more. She needed proof. And she knew just where to find it. The fluorescent lights of the school library buzzed softly as Emily hunched over her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. She had stayed late under the pretense of working on a research paper, but her real mission was far more urgent. She needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof that Tiffany had destroyed Jason's science project. Without that, it was just her word against Tiffany's. And at Ridgeview High, Tiffany's family name carried more weight than the truth. Emily scrolled through the school's archived security logs, her stomach tightening with every click. The files were supposed to be restricted, but Jason had given her a crucial piece of information before they hung up. The night his project was destroyed, Tiffany had been caught on camera sneaking into the science wing after hours. The school had swept it under the rug, but the footage had to still exist somewhere. Her breath hitched when she found it, a folder labeled asterisk, incident reports, restricted. Asterisk inside, a video file dated the night before last year's state science fair. She clicked play. The grainy black and white footage showed the empty science hallway, the dim glow of exit signs casting long shadows. Then, at 11:37 p.m., a figure slipped into view. Even with the low resolution, Emily recognized Tiffany instantly. The way she walked, the way she glanced over her shoulder before jiggling the handle of the lab door. A few seconds later, she disappeared inside. The timestamp jumped. 12:02 a.m. The lab door burst open, and Tiffany stumbled out, her arms full of crumpled papers and broken equipment. She shoved everything into a trash bag, her movements frantic, before sprinting down the hall and out of frame. Emily's hands trembled as she saved the file. This was it. This was the proof. But now came the hard part, deciding what to do with it. ####, the allies you never expected. Emily didn't realize she had an audience until a voice behind her made her jump. Damn. I knew she was ruthless, but that's next level. Emily whirled around, slamming her laptop shut. Jess, one of Tiffany's lackeys, stood there, her arms crossed, her usual smirk replaced by something unreadable. Emily's pulse spiked. How long have you been standing there? Long enough. Jess shrugged. Relax. I'm not gonna tell her. Emily narrowed her eyes. Why not? Jess hesitated, then pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. A video played, Tiffany, laughing as she bragged about how easy it was to manipulate people. Jess? Mara. They're just useful idiots. They'll do whatever I say as long as they think they're popular. Emily blinked. You recorded her saying that? Yeah. And a lot worse. Jess pocketed her phone. Look, I'm not pretending to be some saint. I've done messed up stuff because Tiffany made it seem fun. But what she did to you, and to Jason? That's not fun. That's just cruel. Emily studied her, searching for the trap. What do you want? Same thing you do, Jess said. To take her down. ###, the trap is set. By morning, the plan was in motion. Emily had spent hours editing the footage, splicing it with Tiffany's own social media posts, the ones where she bragged about never facing consequences. She added Jason's testimony, the comments, everything. But she didn't post it. Not yet. Instead, she sent one copy to the school board, and another to Tiffany herself, with a simple message. You have until noon to confess, or everyone sees this. The response was immediate. You're dead. Emily smirked and typed back. Try me. ### the fallout. Tiffany didn't confess. At 12:01 p.m., Emily hit send. By 12:15, the video had spread to every student in school. By 12:30, Tiffany was yanked out of class by the principal. And by the final bell, the rumors were flying. Tiffany's father had pulled strings to keep her from being expelled, but she was suspended indefinitely. The school board was launching an investigation. And for the first time in Ridgeview High history, Tiffany Mercer wasn't the queen bee anymore. She was just another girl who'd finally been caught. ### the aftermath. Emily expected to feel triumphant. Instead, she just felt tired. She sat on the bleachers after school, watching the cheer squad practice without her. She hadn't been kicked off, but after everything, it didn't feel like her place anymore. You gonna sit there all day, or are you gonna rejoin your team? Emily turned. Sarah, the cheer captain, stood behind her, holding out a folded uniform. Emily stared at it. You still want me on the squad? Sarah shrugged. You're the best flyer we've got. And honestly, she smirked. It's kinda badass how you took down Tiffany. Emily took the uniform. Maybe some things could go back to normal. Or maybe, just maybe, they could be better. The next week passed in a surreal haze. The halls of Ridgeview High felt different. Lighter, somehow, without Tiffany's presence looming over everything. Whispers still followed Emily, but they had shifted from pity or fear to something closer to respect. Even teachers looked at her differently, their glances lingering with a mix of curiosity and approval. But Emily didn't trust it. She knew better than to think this was over. ###, the silence was worse. Tiffany's suspension was supposed to last 2 weeks. 2 weeks of peace. 2 weeks for the school to adjust to life without its self-appointed queen. But Tiffany wasn't the type to go quietly. The first sign came on Monday morning. Emily opened her locker to find her cheerleading uniform shredded, the fabric sliced into ragged strips. A single word was scrawled across the inside of the door in thick black marker. Bitch. Emily stared at it, her stomach twisting. She'd expected something like this, some petty retaliation, but seeing it still sent a chill down her spine. She slammed the locker shut. ####, the squad divides. Cheer practice that afternoon was tense. Half the squad treated Emily like she'd sprouted a second head, whispering behind their hands whenever she walked by. The other half, led by Sarah, stood by her, but even their support felt brittle, like they were waiting for the other shoe to drop. Mara, Tiffany's other lackey, was the worst. She didn't say a word to Emily, but her glare was venomous. When Emily went up for a stunt, Mara accidentally missed the catch, sending Emily crashing to the mat. Sarah blew the whistle, her voice sharp. "Mara!" "Oh, now!" Mara didn't argue. She just smirked as she walked off the mat, her eyes locked on Emily the whole time. The message was clear. This isn't over. ####, the warning. Emily was halfway home when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She opened the text. A single photo. Her house. Taken from the street, the front porch clearly visible. Then another buzz. *, you should have left it alone. *. Emily's blood ran cold. ####, the decision. Her dad was in the kitchen when she got home, his back to her as he scrubbed a pan in the sink. "Hey, kiddo," he said without turning. "How was?" "We need to talk," Emily interrupted. Her voice must have sounded off, because he turned immediately, his brow furrowing. "What's wrong?" She showed him the texts. His face darkened. "That's it," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm calling the school. The police. This is..." "No." Emily cut him off. "Not yet. Emily. I need to handle this myself." Her dad stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Okay. But if anything else happens, anything, we go nuclear." "Understood." Emily nodded. She had a plan. And this time, Tiffany wouldn't see it coming. The next morning, Emily walked into school with her head held high, the shredded remains of her cheer uniform stuffed in her backpack. She had spent the entire night thinking, planning, and now, finally, she was ready to strike back. But this time, she wouldn't do it alone. ####, the meeting. Jess was waiting by her locker, arms crossed, looking more nervous than Emily had ever seen her. "You got my text?" Emily asked quietly as she spun her combination lock. Jess nodded. "Yeah, and I'm in. But you realize how insane this is, right? If Tiffany finds out." "She won't," Emily said, cutting her off. She pulled open her locker and pretended to rummage through it, keeping her voice low. "Not until it's too late." Jess hesitated. "What about Mara? She's still loyal to Tiffany. If she catches wind of this..." "Mara's not a problem," Emily said. She pulled out a book and flipped it open, revealing a folded piece of paper tucked inside. She handed it to Jess. "That's everything we need. Times, dates, names. Tiffany's not the only one who's been breaking rules." Jess unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the contents. Then she let out a low whistle. "Damn. You've been busy." Emily smirked. "You have no idea. ####, the weakness." Tiffany had always acted untouchable, but Emily had spent the last week digging, digging, into her life. And what she found was surprising. Tiffany's perfect reputation? A carefully constructed lie. Her family's influence? Not as solid as she pretended. And her so-called loyalty to her friends? Non-existent. Emily had proof of it all. Cheating on tests. Stealing from the booster club. Even sabotaging other cheerleaders to keep her spot as the squad's star. But the most damning thing? The messages. Hundreds of them, spanning months, where Tiffany trash-talked everyone. Her friends, her teachers, even her own family. Jess had helped her get them. And now they were going to use them. ####, the setup. The plan was simple. Tiffany was due back from suspension next Monday. Emily wanted her to walk into a war. So she and Jess spent the week carefully, quietly, spreading the truth. Not all at once, that would be too obvious. Instead, they let it trickle out. A screenshot slipped into a group chat. A recording accidentally played in the cafeteria. A printed conversation left in the wrong hands. By Friday, the school was buzzing. And Tiffany had no idea. ####the trap springs. Sunday night, Emily sat at her desk, her laptop open, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. One last piece. One final blow. She took a deep breath and clicked send. A video uploaded to a brand new, anonymous account. In it, Tiffany's own voice rang out, clear as day. God, my parents are so pathetic. My dad only cares about his stupid reputation. And my mom's just a drunk. I can't wait to get out of this town and leave all these losers behind. Then, a second clip. Jess? Mara, please. They're just useful idiots. I keep them around because they make me look better. Emily leaned back, exhaling slowly. The video was set to go live at 7 a.m. Right before first period. Right when Tiffany walked back into school. ###the storm breaks. Monday morning, Emily arrived early, her heart pounding as she took her seat in homeroom. The whispers started before the bell even rang. Did you see? I can't believe she. How could she say that about? Then the door slammed open. Tiffany stood there, her face pale, her eyes wild. The room fell silent. For a long, terrible moment, no one moved. Then Tiffany's gaze locked onto Emily. And Emily smiled. ###the reckoning. Tiffany lunged. Emily was ready. She sidestepped, letting Tiffany stumble past her, then turned to face her as the room erupted into chaos. You bitch, Tiffany snarled. You're dead. You hear me? Dead. Emily didn't flinch. Funny. That's exactly what you said to Jason before he left, isn't it? Tiffany froze. The room went silent again. Emily took a step forward. You've been bullying people for years, Tiffany. But here's the thing about bullies. Eventually, everyone sees them for what they really are. She gestured to the room. To the students staring at Tiffany with disgust. To Jess, standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. To Mara, who wouldn't meet Tiffany's eyes. Tiffany looked around, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Then she turned and ran. ###the aftermath. By lunch, Tiffany's parents had been called. By the end of the day, rumors were swirling that she wouldn't be coming back. And Emily? She sat at her usual table, her head high, her hands steady. For the first time in months, she felt free. But as she looked around the cafeteria, at the whispers and the stares, she realized something. This wasn't over. Not really. Because power vacuums don't stay empty for long. And someone would try to fill Tiffany's place. The question was, who? The days following Tiffany's downfall were eerily quiet. The school seemed to be holding its breath, waiting to see who would step into the void left behind. Emily kept her guard up, expecting retaliation, but none came. At least not yet. Instead, something stranger happened. People started looking at her differently. ###the unwanted crown. It started with small things. A freshman girl shyly asking Emily for advice on dealing with a bully. A group of guys from the basketball team nodding at her in the hall like she was some kind of authority. Even teachers seemed to defer to her opinion in class discussions, as if her takedown of Tiffany had suddenly made her the moral compass of Ridgeview High. Emily hated it. She hadn't done this to become the new queen bee. She'd done it to survive. But survival, she was learning, came with consequences. ###the first challenge. Mara made her move on Thursday. Emily was at her locker when she felt a presence behind her. She turned to find Mara leaning against the next locker over, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. You think you won, Mara said, her voice low. Emily shut her locker slowly. I didn't realize this was a game. Mara smirked. Everything's a game. You just didn't know you were playing. She pushed off the locker and stepped closer. But here's the thing, Tiffany's gone. And now everyone's looking at you to see what happens next. Emily held her gaze. And I'm just wondering, Mara said, tilting her head, if you're ready for what that means. Then she walked away, leaving Emily with a cold knot in her stomach. ###the offer. Sarah cornered her after cheer practice. We need to talk, she said. pulling Emily aside while the rest of the squad filed out of the gym. Emily braced herself. "If this is about Mara, it's about you," Sarah interrupted. She crossed her arms, studying Emily like she was seeing her for the first time. "People are scared of you now." Emily blinked. "What? You took down Tiffany Mercer. No one does that. No one even tries." Sarah shook her head. "But here's the problem. Nature abhors a vacuum. And right now, you're standing right in the middle of it." Emily's skin prickled. "What are you saying?" Sarah leaned in. "I'm saying you have a choice. You can walk away, pretend none of this happened, and let someone else fill Tiffany's shoes. Or..." She paused. "You can step up. Actually use this." Emily recoiled. "Use it? To do what? To change things?" Sarah's voice was firm. "To make sure no one else ends up like Jason. Or like you." Emily opened her mouth, then closed it. She hadn't thought about it that way. ####the decision. That night, Emily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Sarah's words echoing in her head. "You can step up." Could she? Did she even want to? Her phone buzzed. A text from Jess. "You seeing this?" Attached was a screenshot from a group chat Emily wasn't in. A poll had been created. Who should take Tiffany's place? The options. 1. Emily. 2. Mara. 3. Someone else. Emily's stomach twisted. She typed back. When was this posted? Jess's reply came instantly. An hour ago. Mara's winning. Emily sat up, her pulse quickening. Mara wouldn't just fill Tiffany's shoes. She'd be worse. Emily's fingers hovered over the screen. Then she made her choice. She texted Sarah. "I'm in." ###the plan. The next morning, Emily walked into school early, her backpack heavy with supplies. Sarah met her at the senior lockers, handing her a stack of bright blue flyers. "You sure about this?" Sarah asked. Emily nodded. "Yeah. Let's go." They split up, covering opposite ends of the school, taping the flyers to every bulletin board, locker bank, and classroom door. By first period, the entire school was buzzing. The flyers read, "Tired of the drama? The bullying? The games? Meet us at lunch. Cafeteria. Table by the windows. Let's make Ridgeview better. And at the bottom, in bold letters, no kings, no queens, just us. ###the response. Emily wasn't sure anyone would show up. But when lunch rolled around, the table was packed. Not just with the usual outcasts or the kids Tiffany had tormented, but with athletes, cheerleaders, even a few teachers lingering nearby, pretending not to listen. Jess was the first to speak. "So, what's the plan?" Emily took a deep breath. Then she told them. The cafeteria buzzed with an energy Emily had never felt before. Students from every clique, jocks, nerds, band kids, even the quiet ones who usually ate alone, were crammed around the table, listening as she laid out her vision. "We don't need another Tiffany," Emily said, her voice steady despite the way her hands trembled under the table. "We don't need anyone ruling this school like it's their personal kingdom. What we need is accountability." A murmur rippled through the group. Jess leaned forward. "How?" Emily pulled out a notebook and flipped it open. Inside were pages of ideas, student-led mediation for conflicts, anonymous reporting for bullying, even a mentorship program pairing upperclassmen with freshmen. "We start small," she said. "We look out for each other. And when someone tries to pull the same crap Tiffany did..." She met Mara's eyes across the table. "We don't let them." Mara smirked but said nothing. ###the first test. The movement, though no one called it that yet, faced its first challenge by the end of the week. A freshman named Liam was cornered near the gym by a trio of juniors who'd been Tiffany's wannabes. They were demanding his lunch money when Emily and Sarah rounded the corner. Sarah didn't hesitate. She blew the whistle hanging around her neck, a recent addition, and barked, "Back off! Now!" The juniors froze. One, a lanky guy named Drew, scoffed. "Or what? You'll tattle to the principal?" Emily stepped forward. "No. We'll post the security footage of you shaking down a kid half your size. And then we'll see how tough you look when the whole school watches." Drew paled. He hadn't noticed the camera above them. The juniors slunk away, but not before Drew shot Emily a glare. "This isn't over." Liam, wide-eyed, stammered his thanks. Sarah clapped him on the shoulder. "Stick with us. We've got your back. ####, the resistance grows." Not everyone was on board. By Monday, whispers slithered through the halls. Emmy's just trying to take over. She's no better than Tiffany. Mara, ever the opportunist, capitalized on it. She held her own meetings, spinning Emily's efforts as a power grab. "It's cute how she pretends to care," Mara told a group of cheerleaders in the locker room, loud enough for Emily to hear. "But let's be real, she's just mad she wasn't the one on top before." Emily bit her tongue. Arguing would only prove Mara's point. Instead, she doubled down on action. ###, the ripple effect. The anonymous reporting system went live first. A simple Google form linked in the school's online newsletter, monitored by a rotating group of trusted students. Within days, reports poured in, not just bullying, but cheating scandals, teacher favoritism, even a drug ring operating out of the auto shop. Emily and Sarah brought the findings to Principal Higgins, who balked at first. "This is highly irregular," he said, adjusting his glasses. Sarah crossed her arms. "So is letting kids suffer because adults won't step in." Reluctantly, Higgins agreed to investigate. ### the backlash. Success came with a cost. Emily's locker was vandalized again, this time with the word "snitch" in red paint. Drew and his friends accidentally bumped her in the halls, their shoulders slamming into hers with force. Worst of all, the school board, including Tiffany's father, caught wind of the movement. An emergency meeting was called to discuss unauthorized student activism. ###, the breaking point. The summons came during third period. "Emily Carter." The intercom crackled. "Report to the principal's office immediately." Sarah grabbed her wrist as she stood. "Don't go alone." Emily shook her head. "This is my fight." The walk to the office felt endless. Every eye followed her. Every whisper stabbed. When she pushed open the door, Principal Higgins wasn't alone. Tiffany's father sat across from him, his suit crisp, his expression icy. "Miss Carter," Mr. Mercer said, "we need to talk." ###, the ultimatum. The office walls seemed to close in as Mr. Mercer laid out his terms. "Disband this little club of yours," he said, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. "Apologize for defaming my daughter. And we'll forget this ever happened." Emily's nails bit into her palms. "And if I don't?" Mr. Mercer smiled. "Then I'll ensure your permanent record reflects your true character. Starting with that violent outburst in the locker room." Principal Higgins shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent. Emily's stomach churned. She'd expected threats. But this was chess, not checkers. She stood slowly. "I'll think about it," she lied. ###, the rebellion solidifies. Sarah and Jess were waiting outside. "Well," Jess demanded. Emily exhaled. "We're screwed." But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. Because now she was angry. Emily sat on the bleachers overlooking the empty football field, the cold metal biting through her jeans. The meeting with Mr. Mercer had ended hours ago, but the weight of his threat still pressed against her chest like a physical force. Sarah dropped onto the bench beside her, handing over a steaming cup of coffee from the gas station down the street. "So, we're officially at war with the school board." Emily wrapped her fingers around the cup, letting the heat seep into her skin. "Looks like it." Jess arrived next, out of breath from sprinting across the parking lot. She shoved her phone in their faces. "You guys seeing this?" The screen displayed a Ridgeview High student forum, flooded with posts. Did anyone else get called out for disruptive behavior today? Asterisk. Asterisk. My mom just got a call saying I'm inciting unrest. WTF. Asterisk. Asterisk. They're trying to scare us into shutting up. Asterisk. Emily's pulse quickened. Mr. Mercer wasn't just coming after her. He was targeting everyone involved. Sarah swore under her breath. This is bigger than we thought. #### the underground network. They met in the only place they knew the school couldn't monitor. The abandoned auto shop behind the football field. Dozens of students crammed inside, their faces illuminated by phone screens and battery-powered lanterns. Emily stood on a workbench, the murmurs fading as she raised her voice. They think we'll back down if they threaten us. They're wrong. A junior named Carlos spoke up. What can we even do? They're the school board. We document everything, Emily said. Every threat. Every unfair punishment. And then, she pulled out her laptop, projecting a spreadsheet onto the dusty whiteboard. We take it public. The spreadsheet listed every incident of corruption tied to board members. Grade changes for athletes, contracts awarded to relatives. Tiffany swept under the rug destruction of Jason's project. Jess whistled. You've been busy. Emily's smile was razor thin. We're just getting started. #### the leak. 2 days later, an anonymous Twitter account posted the first thread. Asterisk, let's talk about Ridgeview High's zero-tolerance bullying policy, and who it really protects. Asterisk. Attached were emails between Principal Higgins and Mr. Mercer, discussing how to handle Emily without drawing attention. The thread went viral by lunch. Local news picked it up by dinner. By morning, #Ridgeview cover-up was trending statewide. #### the fallout. The school board emergency meeting was supposed to be private. Students packed the hallway outside anyway, their phones recording as board members arrived under a hail of shouted questions. Mr. Mercer pushed through the crowd, his polished facade cracking when he spotted Emily at the front. You have no idea what you've done, he hissed. Emily held his gaze. Yeah, I do. Inside, the board voted unanimously to suspend all disciplinary actions tied to the activism incidents, pending an independent review. Mr. Mercer abstained, then resigned. #### the aftermath. Tiffany didn't return to Ridgeview. Rumors said she transferred to a private school out of state. Mara followed a week later, though no one knew where. The movement didn't dissolve with their departure. If anything, it grew stronger. The mentorship program launched with 30 upperclassmen volunteers. The mediation team resolved its first conflict without faculty intervention. Even the teachers seemed lighter, grading with less skepticism. But Emily, she sat alone at lunch, staring at the empty seat across from her. Victory didn't taste as sweet as she'd imagined. #### the letter. It arrived on the last day of the semester, slipped into her locker in an unmarked envelope. Emily unfolded the single sheet of paper, recognizing the handwriting instantly. Asterisk, you won. For now. But people like you don't stay on top for long. Enjoy it while it lasts. Asterisk. No signature. None was needed. Emily crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Then she walked away, leaving the ghosts of Ridgeview High behind her. The new semester at Ridgeview High began with an unfamiliar quiet. The hallways, once charged with tension, now hummed with a cautious optimism. Students smiled more freely, teachers seemed less burdened, and even the fluorescent lights overhead appeared less harsh. Emily walked through the front doors on the first day back, her short hair now grown out slightly, the jagged edges softened into something intentional. She wore it as a badge of honor now, a physical reminder of everything that had happened. But beneath the surface calm, she couldn't shake the feeling that this peace was fragile. #### the new order. Sarah met her at her locker, leaning against the neighboring one with a grin. You're late. Emily rolled her eyes. By 2 minutes. 2 minutes in the new regime is basically treason, Sarah teased, nudging her shoulder. People are already calling you the Iron Cheerleader. You can't be slacking now. Emily groaned. Please tell me that's not actually a thing. Oh, it's a thing, Jess chimed in as she rounded the corner, balancing 3 coffees in a cardboard carrier. There's even a meme. Here. She handed Emily a cup and pulled out her phone, showing a photoshopped image of Emily in full cheer uniform, except her pom-poms were replaced with gavels, and her megaphone was labeled, Justice. Emily nearly spat out her coffee. "Delete that." "Never," Jess said, grinning. "It's already all over Twitter." ####the unexpected legacy. The real surprise came during homeroom. Principal Higgins, newly chastened after the board's investigation, stood at the front of the room and made an announcement. "After careful consideration," he said, adjusting his glasses, "the faculty and student council have voted to implement a new peer mediation program. Any conflicts between students can now be brought before a panel of elected representatives for resolution, rather than immediately escalating to administrative punishment." A murmur rippled through the room. Higgins continued. "The program was proposed and designed by one of our own students." He paused, then nodded toward Emily. "Miss Carter, would you like to say a few words?" Emily froze. She hadn't expected this. She'd sent the proposal to Higgins weeks ago, but she'd assumed it would be buried under bureaucratic red tape. Now, every eye in the room was on her. She stood slowly, her pulse loud in her ears. "It's simple," she said. "We proved last semester that students can handle their own problems, if they're given the tools and the trust to do it. This program is about making that permanent." The applause was immediate. ###the first challenge. The mediation panel held its first case by the end of the week. A sophomore named Ryan had been accused of stealing from another student's locker. The evidence was shaky, no witnesses, just circumstantial rumors, but the accusation had already spread like wildfire. Emily sat at the center of the panel, flanked by Sarah and Carlos, a quiet but respected senior. Ryan stood before them, his hands clenched at his sides. "I didn't take anything," he insisted, his voice cracking. "I don't even know why they're blaming me." Emily studied him. "Why do you think they are?" Ryan hesitated. "Because I'm an easy target." The answer hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. After hearing both sides, the panel deliberated. There was no proof, just hearsay. They ruled in Ryan's favor, but Emily made sure to add a stipulation. The accuser had to apologize publicly. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. ###the warning signs. Not everyone was happy with the new system. Drew and his friends, the same ones who tried to shake down Liam, watched from the sidelines, their expressions dark. "You really think this'll last?" Drew muttered as Emily passed him in the hall. She didn't bother stopping. "Guess we'll see." But his words lingered. ### the letter. Part 2. Emily found the second note taped to the inside of her locker. Asterisk. "You didn't win. You just delayed the inevitable." Asterisk. This time, there was a postscript. Asterisk. P.S. Ask Jason about the science fair. Asterisk. Emily's blood ran cold. ### the unfinished business. She called Jason that night. He answered on the third ring, his voice groggy. "Emily? It's midnight. Did something else happen at the science fair?" she blurted. "Something you didn't tell me?" The line went silent for so long she thought the call had dropped. Then Jason sighed. "Tiffany didn't just destroy my project," he said quietly. "She planted something in it. Something that could have gotten me expelled. Or worse." Emily's grip tightened on the phone. "What?" "Stolen answer keys. From the principal's office." Jason's voice was hollow. "She was going to frame me for selling them. I only found out because I caught her in the act. But by then, it was too late. My reputation was already trashed." Emily's mind raced. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it doesn't matter anymore," Jason said. "I'm gone. You moved on. But if you're getting notes about it now..." Emily understood. Tiffany wasn't done. And whatever came next would be worse. The air in Ridgeview High had shifted again. The brief period of calm was over, replaced by a tension that slithered through the hallways like a living thing. Emily could feel it in the way students glanced at her, then quickly looked away. In the way whispers stopped when she entered a room. Something was coming. And this time, she wasn't sure she was ready. ###, the trap is sprung. The first blow landed at cheer practice. Emily was mid-stunt when Sarah suddenly missed her catch. Emily hit the mat hard, her ankle twisting beneath her with a sickening pop. Pain shot up her leg, but worse than that was the look on Sarah's face. Guilt, but also something else. Fear. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered, helping her up. "I didn't." Then she froze. Emily followed her gaze. Mara stood in the doorway of the gym, smirking. She wasn't alone. Tiffany stood beside her, her hair dyed jet black, her eyes cold. "Miss me?" she called, her voice echoing across the gym. ####the return of the Queen. Tiffany's return sent shockwaves through the school. She'd been rehabilitated, according to the press release her father had orchestrated. A semester at an exclusive behavioral academy, a glowing letter from a therapist, and suddenly, she was back, with a vengeance. And she wasn't hiding her agenda. "Ridgeview's gotten soft," she announced to a crowd of onlookers in the cafeteria, her gaze locked on Emily. "But don't worry. I'm here to fix that." ####the undermining. Tiffany's campaign was subtle at first. The peer mediation cases started falling apart. Witnesses recanted. Evidence disappeared. Students who'd been vocal supporters of Emily suddenly clammed up or, worse, switched sides. Then came the rumors. Whispers that Emily had fabricated the evidence against Tiffany. That she'd blackmailed Jason into lying. That her entire movement was just a power grab. The worst part? People believed it. ###the breaking point. Emily sat alone in the auto shop, her head in her hands. She'd been so sure they'd won, so sure the changes would last. But Tiffany had dismantled it all in under a week. The door creaked open. Emily looked up, expecting Sarah or Jess. Instead, Jason stood there, his expression grim. "We need to talk," he said. ###the truth unveiled. Jason handed her a flash drive. Tiffany's therapist? A family friend. The Behavioral Academy? A glorified vacation. And the science fair. He took a deep breath. She didn't just plant answer keys. She recorded me stealing them. The video's on there. Emily plugged the drive into her laptop. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. Jason, sneaking into the principal's office, rifling through files. Except it wasn't Jason. The height was wrong. The build. Emily squinted. "Is that Drew?" Jason nodded. "She paid him to wear my jacket and a wig. I never knew about the video until now. But she's been holding it over me for years." Emily's mind raced. "And now she's using it again." "Worse," Jason said. "She's going to say you helped me. That this whole movement was just a cover for our scheme." ###the final play. Emily knew what she had to do. She waited until the school assembly, the one Tiffany had arranged to clear the air. Tiffany stood at the podium, her voice dripping with faux sincerity as she spun her lies. "And while I regret my past actions, I can't stand by as others manipulate." The projector flickered to life behind her. The video of Drew played first. Then security footage of Tiffany bribing him. Then the emails between her and her therapist, planning her triumphant return. The room erupted. Tiffany whirled around, her face draining of color. Emily stood, her voice steady. "Enough." #### the fall. Tiffany didn't even try to deny it. She screamed. She raged. She threatened. But the evidence was undeniable. This time, there would be no comeback. #### the aftermath. With Tiffany gone, for good this time, the school began to heal. The mediation program was reinstated. The student council took real power. Even Principal Higgins seemed to have found a spine. At graduation, Emily stood on stage as valedictorian, looking out at the sea of faces. "We proved something this year," she said. "That change isn't about one person. It's about all of us. And it doesn't end when we leave these doors." As she stepped down, she caught Jason's eye in the crowd. He smiled. She smiled back. Then she walked into the future, head high, ponytail swaying, ready for whatever came next.